Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's rested, having a good morning so far. Who's just getting here? Who's been here already? Good. Oh, okay. Very good. Well, I meant to church, the service this morning. Hopefully, everybody's alive. This is my second or third cup of coffee, so I'm pretty wired right now. I'm pretty amped up. We had our first class at 9:15, and now is our second. So I always like the second one because this is now where I'm awake, and we've got our warm up out the way. So here we go. Today we're going to go through week 2. So week 2, the intention of week 2 is we set a lot of foundational understanding of this program, of how this course is going to benefit you. In week 1 with Dr. Green. Week 2, we're going to talk about, I'm going to real quickly go over our housekeeping. I did that last week, but just in case you missed a little bit, I'll give like a 2-minute highlight, how to get the most out of this class. And then we're going to talk about the how. What's our game plan? How do we use the methodologies, God's promises in this class to show you how you can use this in real time to manage and be a steward of your finances, so that, again, the value of this class is not necessarily just what we accomplish while we're in this class together, but what you do by taking away from this class. And that's really where we get the most fulfillment out of as instructors and teachers. It's because we want to see this make a difference for you all. Okay? So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the 4, I'm going to call them the 4 different pillars of how to get the most out of this class. So again, this is typically an 11-week class, but we have 10 weeks together with this semester because we started a week later after Easter. And so now we have 10 weeks together. But technically speaking, we only have 9 weeks worth of actual teaching together because our 10th week is our graduation. We're going to celebrate with you all. Okay? So again, attendance, our expectations is that you attend 6 out of the 10 weeks. There's some buffer that's built into there just in case you're in and out of classes. But also make note that on the Church Center app, I'm going to jump down to 3. If you're not present on for attendance on a given week, every week on the Church Center app, I'm posting a weekly recap that shows you what we covered during that class. It gives you a recording to the video of this class, just in case you want to follow along. And then we also include any kind of links or documents that you need in order to be successful for that class. Okay? Attendance is important, but even more important is your homework, which is number 2. Right? Your homework consists of 2 assignments that we issue every semester. It's your financial statement, which is essentially your balance sheet. We're going to go into that a little bit, and then also your monthly spending plan. Okay, those 2 put together are going to be the foundation for how you set yourself up to be a good steward of your finances throughout this class and then even afterwards as well. The Church Center app, I also alluded to that. So you not only have that weekly recap, but also on the Church Center app, if you look at the resources tab, that gives you all the links to or actually we built a website that has all of the documents that are in your folder. But then outside of that, you also have the digital versions of those spreadsheets, your spending plan and your consumer equity sheet, which is your financial statement. My wife has created some very nice automated tools that will help you to manage your finances because the automated tools have all the formulas and everything built into it. So therefore, all you got to do is plug in your numbers and then don't touch anything else, and then it'll do the magic for you versus you. If you're on paper, right, analog, you have to do all the equations and make sure everything's right yourself. On top of that, you have to QC it to make sure that your numbers are accurate so that you're not miscalculating and end up making a boo-boo with your finances, right? Word to it is, if you like analog, it's fantastic. Be very intentional about making sure your numbers check out. But then if you like digital version, that's our preference. Follow along with that, and these tools will help you even on a bigger scale. And then last but not least, outside of the Church Center app, you have the book. Forgive how kind of beat up this book looks, but this is the Total Money Makeover. This is my copy, obviously, so it's been used. This book, The Total Money Makeover, is a fantastic book that the methodology is all summarized into this book for you. Okay, so This is also available downstairs in the bookstore. I think it's $16, $17, but I have a free copy, PDF copy of it for you on the Church Center website as well. I also have a free copy of the workbook that goes along with this as well. That's a good handcuff to say, okay, so let's walk through real-time examples and see how the book, in addition to the workbook, can kind of get your mental juices flowing on how it applies to your situation. Okay, what I would say on this is this book is it's not required for graduation out of this class, but if you look on your syllabus, each week we give assigned reading that corresponds with each module. Okay, this is a really good handcuff to this course because it gives you really good practical examples, life situations that will get you to think about things a little bit different than how you are right now. What I mean by that is this book, as an example, my wife and I have been on this financial journey for the last 5 years, right? The book, when we read it, we were already feeling like we were being good stewards of our finances. However, there are some examples in this book that my wife and I read about how to think about your things like that you wouldn't normally think are non-negotiables, right? So what about your healthcare expense? My wife and I had some, I'll get into that with our testimony, but we had some hardships that came along, resulted in some debt for us. And so we were trying to pay that off, and we were trying to do the best that we can with what we knew. This book got us to change our mindset a little bit about how we calculate and project and plan for our healthcare expenses. And what ended up happening is that through that example, we ended up changing our healthcare plan or tweaking it, and we put $6,000 back in our pockets or in our spending plan every year. $6,000 is $500 a month. Think about $500 extra going to a productive place in your finances. That's the way that my wife and I were able to leverage this methodology and get ahead with our finances. That was a really big win for us. Does that make sense? So this book allowed us to connect those dots and come out of that as a result. Does that make sense? I hope I promoted this book pretty well, but it is well worth the $16. It literally changed our lives. God changed our lives, but this book had some information in it that was a real big light bulb moment for my wife and I. Does that make sense, guys? All right, so on to today. So that's housekeeping. Let's talk about finances. Let's talk about why we're here. Let's talk about how we're going to get it done, right? So the first thing that we have to understand is that this whole program, this whole biblical finance class is based off of one thing. It's that God has called us to be stewards of our finances. That is the basic premise of how we manage our finances biblically, right? God has given us the blueprint through the Bible that says, follow these directions, and this is what we will do. This is what I will do for you financially. He actually has one place in the Bible where he openly challenges us to say, test me in this, and I will do this as a result of it. That is in regards to tithing, but it has to do specifically with finances. And finances is the only place in the Bible where God actually says, challenge me and see what I'll do for you, right? Challenge me on this, meaning put your trust in me with your finances and see that I won't pour out an overflow for you that you can't explain. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to being a steward of your finances and putting God at the center of your finances. My wife and I, just giving context to you guys, my wife and I both have a background working for an accounting firm. So she's a bookkeeper for the firm. This is Giovanna back there, by the way, if you raise your hand, baby. So she's a bookkeeper for the accounting firm, and I was previously in business transformation for that same accounting firm. Business transformation, what that means is I do process optimization and I automate stuff to be more efficient, right? So you take computers or you take processes and then you create technology to make it faster. That's what I was in the business for, right? My wife also was raised financially literate by some really good parents that she had that are very successful financially, and they raised their children to be that way, right? So her expectations growing up too, and mind you, my wife and I are high school sweethearts. So we met when we were 17. I was turning 18. I'm 38 right now, right? So 21 years of how long we've known each other. She was raised financially literate and I was not, right? And I'm not saying that as a knock to my parents. I'm not saying that as pointing the fingers at anybody. What I mean by that is, for whatever reason, I was not raised to be financially literate, meaning that I didn't think about how to manage my finances really until I became an adult. Okay? And the long story of it is that for the first 10 years of my life, I struggled heavily because I was making my own financial decisions as I saw fit. And as I saw fit was an extremely emotional young 20-something-year-old Darrell that didn't really understand repercussions of those finances and what that would do from those decisions, or how limited I would end up being because of those decisions that I was making, right? What I mean by that is I've made financial decisions that got me into bills that I couldn't pay. I wasn't making a ton of money at the time. And then when I got into a tough situation financially, what did that mean? I had to choose on what I was going to pay, right? And then me backing out of payments, backing out of bills from companies that I had told I would give them money, right? For instance, a big screen TV that I didn't have any business buying at that time, right? I was in college and I was a moron when I was going through all this, but it was a big screen TV and I was making no progress on payments on this big screen TV, even though I was given the minimum payment every month. That was the smoke and mirrors for me as a young adult, right? Hey, there's a $3,100. I paid $3,100 for that TV like 20 years ago, just about. Or call it 15, whatever it is. That was expensive. I should not have bought that TV. Wasn't making progress on it. I stopped paying on that TV because I lost my job at that time. So what happens when I stop paying on something? You got people looking after you, right? I got creditors looking after me. I had car repossessions. I have negative bank accounts. I had overflow or overdraft fees on me all the time because I bought a $2 soda that I misjudged, that I thought I had some more money in there. And now that $2 soda cost me $36 because of an overdraft fee. And my wife would get on to me, girlfriend at the time. She wasn't my wife. There's a meaning in that. She would get on to me all the time like, you can't keep doing this. You're bleeding, right? Scott, payday loans, that was this guy. 10 years straight up. So I say all that because that's where I was. So my wife and I were polar opposites when it came to finances. And it wasn't until 10 years in that I finally said, I give up, God. I give up trying to do it my way because I've been trying. And no matter how hard I work, no matter how clever I think I am in putting things together, it's like something always happens when I'm about to get ahead, and it ends up holding me down. And I got into this cycle where that was just happening all the time, to the point where I was just like, God, I'm tired of doing this my way. I know what your promises say. And my wife's mother was actually the one who got through to me because it started to impact more than just me, right? It was not only me, it was my career. I started getting limited on that. My wife and I weren't able to get married, so we had to reschedule our wedding. And she pretty much came to terms and said, all right, we are going to reschedule for 1 year out. And if this does not happen, you and I are not going to be together. And I said, well, I better get myself together then, huh? So, and my wife's mother, yeah. Very strong standards. And I appreciate that now in hindsight. But my wife's mother was the one who was like, Darrell, I see what you're doing here. I know that you're trying, and I know that you are that you're trying to serve God, but you're not right with your finances. And I have to be transparent with you. You cannot be right with God and not be right with your finances. You made a promise to all these debtors and companies, and you're not holding up your word, Darrell. And now it's starting to impact other parts of your life. So until you reconcile, until you come to terms that you need to deal with this situation and get right with your finances, you're never going to have the covering and the promises that God has for you. And what am I going to say to that? Am I just going to continue down the road, or am I going to say, you know what, you're right? It was at that point where I admitted for myself and I said, you're right, and I need to work on myself. And so from that point on, I drew a line in the sand and I never looked back. 10 years later, complete 180, okay? We are very financially savvy, I'll put it that way. without sounding arrogant, but my wife and I constantly talk about our finances. We both know what's going on with our finances, and we are constantly thinking about what's next for us. How do we make more strategic decisions to get ourselves even in a better situation? So versus Darrell before, 10 years prior, where I was just doing stuff that was just emotional and erratic decisions that weren't good, not only for myself, but also weren't going to be good or healthy for a marriage that was coming up. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that was us coming up. And I share all that because fast forward, I think our testimony has really tied into why we teach this class. And so there are principles, there are things that God teaches us in His Word that are so true that through our testimony of us walking through this process over the last year and bettering ourselves, that we felt so compelled we had to share it with you guys, okay? Us coming from the accounting firm, we kind of look at things, well, I look at things from a numbers perspective. I'm very analytical in general, and so we pulled some surveys to kind of put this out as an illustration for everybody to open your eyes up a little bit about what's going on with the financial circumstances in our economy. Okay, so these payments, or I'm sorry, these surveys are from industry publications like payments.com, payroll.org, and Lending Club Corp. So I'm going to give you some context as to where we are as a society right now. So would you be surprised if I get this under control? You'd be surprised if I told you that 65 to 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's 50% to 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 2 to 3/4 of everybody you see live paycheck to paycheck. Okay? Nearly half of American households are only one emergency away from financial disaster. What that financial disaster means is that they don't have enough income to cover their basic expenses for 3 months in the event of a financial emergency like losing a job or paying unexpected medical expenses. Think about that. You lose your job or you pay unexpected medical expenses, your income gets impacted right away, right? So the idea is, are you prepared to handle that situation if something happened with your current finances, right? The idea from that would be, well, if I need more money, I'll just go make more money. I'll go get a part-time job. Or maybe I'll make so much money that I won't have to worry about having enough, right? So this is where I'm going with that. So more than a third of Americans earning at least $250,000, so $250,000 annually, also say that they are living paycheck to paycheck as well. Can you imagine making $250,000 a year and you have nothing at the end of every month? Your money goes just as fast out as it did coming back in, right? The survey shows that 36% of households that take in nearly 4 times the amount of the median U.S. salary devote nearly all of their income to household expenses. And that's particularly true, that's particularly true among millennials who are now in their mid-20s to early 40s, and which is our generation. That's my generation. I'm 38 right now, right? Those out of that generation, the millennials, nearly half of the top earners, or more than half of the top earners in that generation, also report having little to nothing at the end of the month. So the question would be, let's do business process optimization right here with you guys. So when I give you those facts, right? You've got people that are stating that they live paycheck to paycheck. Nearly 3/4 of America says that they live paycheck to paycheck, and nearly half of America that makes $250,000 a year also says that they live paycheck to paycheck as well. So from a root cause, what do you think is the problem we're trying to address here? Is the problem how much money I make, or is the problem how I manage my money? It's how I manage my money, right? Everybody seems to agree on that, but I'm gonna share another bullet point here shortly that kind of gets you to understand where I'm coming from as a young individual, right? So let me ask you this: on the topic of money, when I say describe to me the lifestyle, or what is your perception of a millionaire? When I say that, what comes to mind? big house, cars, right? Anybody want to talk about lifestyle, right? What does social media tell us about people that are wealthy, right? Instagram, right? All you got to do is look at Instagram and everything's perfect all the time, right? I got my Lamborghini, I got my yacht, and I'm always cruising on it, and this is how my life is 24/7, and everything's always happy because I got all this money, right? That is completely the opposite of the case, right? In this book, The Total Money Makeover, Dr. Dave Ramsey actually talks about this study that Dr. Tom Stanley did in the book, The Millionaire Next Door. And what he found was that the typical millionaire lives in a middle-class home, drives a 2-year or older paid-for car, and buys blue jeans at Walmart. In short, Dr. Tom Stanley found that the typical millionaire found infinitely more motivation from the goal of financial security than from what friends and family thought. That means that the ones that, if you think about it, and this is kind of cliche to say, but it really is true, it's the ones that are broadcasting their wealth that may not necessarily have it all together. They may be really good at generating this, but are they really good at managing it to where they hold long-term wealth? They build onto it. They're a kingdom builder, right? Are they really doing right by God's principles? So long-term, you're managing money how God sees us fit, right? And when you see somebody doing the opposite, you might want to think about it and have it might be like a little red flag moment for yourself, right? It's like, oh, I hope that person really has their heads on right about their finances, because the indications are there, the writings on the wall, right? So again, what does this mean? The problem is not how much money we make. The problem is how we manage our finances, how we manage our money. And what it really comes down to is we have to come to terms that no one is born with smart money skills. When it comes to financial education, I think of this as a skill set, right? So skill sets, by definition, you can define them in two ways. There's innate skill sets, and then there's acquired skill sets. Innate skill sets are things that you're going to learn through the progression of your life by observing and learning naturally. Does that make sense? So our son, we have an 18-month-old son. He's learned to crawl, to walk, to run. Now he's trying to learn how to talk, right? Those are things that he's going to learn naturally through living. When it comes to an acquired skill, what about riding a bike, right? What about playing a piano? Can you name any other skills that are acquired skills? Surgeon, right? Yeah. Speaking a different language. It's something that you have to study in order to learn, right? Let me ask you this. How about financial literacy? Is that an acquired skill or is it an innate skill? It's an acquired skill, and we all seem to understand that concept. But here's what I was talking about earlier. From my perspective, right, and this gives you some insight towards how I was. I went through the first 10 years of my adult life treating my financial education like it was an innate skill set. Meaning that I thought that I would, as a grown-up, I would learn naturally and figure this thing out. Well, it took me 10 years of struggling to figure it out before it clicked for me. And that's something that I really don't wish on anybody, because I was in some hard positions, right? But that's the part that hits you in the gut, right, when it comes to this class. A lot of us treat our financial education like it's an innate skill set. We'll just learn naturally, and we'll learn and we won't put any extra time into it, and then we feel like it'll just come together. That is not the case. You have to be intentional with your finances, not only by educating yourself, but by managing your finances actively as well. Okay? Okay, so the point is this: there are a lot of misconceived notions about what we're fed about our finances throughout our lives. And so we have to do this. We have to draw a line in the sand and make a decision to change our thought process on the way that we manage our finances. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So let's talk about how. How are we going to do it? How does this class going to serve you, and how are we going to take you from point A to point B? Well, the first thing you have to acknowledge is that you need a game plan, right? So you're getting the why. You're getting a lot of the financial principles. We're telling you this is biblical. We're telling you these are promises. How are you actually going to do it? There's a couple steps here. So number one, everybody in your folder has a copy of the 7 baby steps. It is the page with the blue, this guy here. So it's this page here, the 7 baby steps. That list is the methodology that we apply in this class to take you from saving for an emergency fund, paying off debt, and then planning for future wealth building as well. Okay, so pay off your debt, and build wealth with the 7 baby steps. This is what is going to. That's the steps that all of us follow, and we're all just in different parts, different steps. Does that make sense? But everybody uses the same methodology because these are tried and true, and they work if you follow the process. Okay, so those 7 baby steps again will allow you to save for emergencies, pay off all your debt for good, and then build wealth. The next thing is going to be your financial statement. I talked about these at the beginning of the class. Your financial statement is going to allow you to take an inventory of all of your assets, meaning the things that put money into your financial portfolio. As a side note, your asset does not include your income because you don't own your income, right? Your assets that we're talking about is what do you have that brings value to your name right now. So if I own a house and I have a $100,000 house, we know they cost more, right? Just for numbers. $100,000 house, I paid off half of that house. That means I have $50,000 in equity to my name. That's what I'm going to record here. When I take my assets minus my liabilities, meaning that the liabilities take money away from these things, you're going to get your total net worth. Okay? So the things that I have that bring money in versus the things that I have that take money away gives me my total net worth as of today. Again, your total net worth as of today is just a number for you. It's a benchmark so that you can understand where you are as far as health is concerned with your financial situation right now. Now, the idea is that that number is not going to stay the same. We expect you to improve it because you're being a steward out of this class and past it, right? So this is going to continue improving. Don't get caught up on the results of this because this is going to change. The point of the financial statement is to create your starting point. Your starting point allows you to understand what is my current financial situation right now. It allows you to set some goals for where you want to go, right? But it's hard to envision a goal of where you want to go if you don't know where you're starting from. Does that make sense? So you got to have your starting point. And if you don't have those goals that you set, then you're likely not going to place priority on trying to do the actions that are going to accomplish those goals. Does that make sense? So you have to have a starting point in order to set goals, and you have to have goals in order to accomplish things with your finances. Last but not least, your monthly spending plan. Your monthly spending plan is the last page of your workbook, which is that guy there. That's the manual spreadsheet. Again, there's a digital copy that's all automated on the Church Center app. But your monthly spending plan allows you to take an inventory of your income and all of your expenses. All of your expenses are broken up into different categories for you to make it easier for you to track. But, your monthly spending plan is going to allow you to say, okay, so based off of my income, I'm going to account for every single penny that I spend, meaning that all of my bills, all of my debts and all that stuff has to be, I need to put it on paper and dictate exactly where this money is going. Does that make sense? What your spending plan allows you to do by physically putting this on paper or the digital copy is it allows you to command your money versus the 90-something% of people that don't live with a spending plan in America. And they just live like I did for the first 10 years, which is, I know I have bills coming up, but I have my money in cash, or I have my money in my account. I didn't really plan for it. I'll have it when it's there. What happens when you live that way and you're not super intentional with this money's going here, this money's going here? Stuff happens. right? And then when stuff happens, I'm short on money. So now I'm taking money from this pile and paying this, but now I'm short over here. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Does that make sense? Your spending plan allows you to combat that, right? So you're commanding your money instead of your money commanding you. You are dictating 100%. This is where my money's going because I am showing it where to go versus I'm being reactive and emotional with my finances to where the first thing that I need to address with priority, that's what I'm forking over money. But I'm in the cyclical process of chasing my tail because somebody always wants money from me and I have to come up with that, okay? What it really does is your monthly spending plan allows you to create a unique game plan for you to accomplish your financial goals. That game plan that you create, it allows you to implement it in your personal finances so that you can see it take action. Then over the next 10 weeks together, you're going to have time to check, right? Observe what's happening with your finances. And then last but not least, you can act, which is based off of your observations, your lessons learned from your spending plan. How did it go? And how did it go? Meaning, do I need to make some changes, right? One quick example, eating out, right? So if you budgeted so much in your spending plan for eating out and you overshot that budget, right? So I spent $400 instead of $200 on eating out. What does that tell you? Is that something where I need to probably create some more finances to eat out? Or is it a behavioral change that I might need to just address and tighten up for myself with some truth and transparency? It's probably a behavioral change, right? So there's things like that doing this exercise is really going to help you to identify. And also take note that on the page right before that, after this is called the recommended percentages. So side note, I won't go into that, but once you start putting together your monthly spending plan next week, that recommended percentages is a good thing to do after you've created your spending plan so that you can see where you fall on the different categories, right? So your recommended percentages is a good help me because it allows you to say, okay, so based off of this, I'm in a healthy range for my rent or my mortgage or my utilities or whatnot. This is not abnormal. It gives you kind of peace of mind of gauging what's normal and what's healthy. Does that make sense? And if you're outside of that, that can help you to make decisions about your finances. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the topic of tithing. And this is what I really like to call God's X factor in your finances. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the topic of tithing, tithing essentially is the recognition of your trust of your finances in God through the example of your stewardship. Okay, tithing, the principle of tithing that God teaches in the Bible, it says bring 10% of your income to the storehouse, to God's kingdom, and tithe that towards God. The reason why we do that is if we are truly believing in God's principles, God is saying that you need to trust me because your source of income comes from God. It comes from Him, right? Our source of income doesn't come from our jobs. Right? That's just the physical way that it's manifested. But God has created that income and He has provided it to you for you to steward, for you to manage. And if we're really looking at stewardship from biblical context, then we're saying, okay, so God, if you're my provider, if you're the one who's given me these finances, then I am truly just a manager of those finances. And as a manager of those finances, what your promises tell me is that I will be able to do more with the 90% that I have after honoring you with my tithe than I would have been able to do 100% on my own. Does that make sense? And that comes not only in the ways of finances, but that comes in everything else that's attached to finances impacting your life. Maybe your health, maybe navigating tricky situations that could have really hurt you financially. Maybe it's weathering the storm through hardships. Right? Keep those things in mind about how God provides. That's what tithing does. It allows you to get underneath God's protection with your finances so that He not only is providing for you, but He is also guiding you as well. Okay? My wife and I were very honored from the church to actually get interviewed a couple years ago and give our testimony on the topic of tithing. We like to show this video because it really does show through our testimony of how This program has not only helped to benefit us, but God's X factor in tithing has helped us to navigate not only our finances, but also the uncertain times as well. So I'm going to show you guys this video. I hope you enjoy it, and then I'm going to bring my wife up for a few minutes, and we're going to talk to you guys about where we are right now and how this program has helped us. Okay? We are Darrell and Giovanna Keene.
We come from two different backgrounds, and I was basically raised in church all my life. So I actually started talking to him about tithing, and he wasn't as receptive in the beginning.
I rejected the idea. I don't know anything about that.
Rejected the idea.
Money, and this is my money. I remember my mother-in-law, she challenged me and said, you know, Darrell, you're doing good things and you're serving God, but you are not right with your finances. I made a lot of decisions to not have debtors. My mother-in-law said, you need to make right with your debtors. She's absolutely right. There was nothing more clear to me that I needed to do than to give my finances to God. And that was when we officially, started tithing. What's awesome about that is I saw God bless that obedience instantly and ended up reconciling all of my debts.
We were doing everything right. We settled everything together. And then we ended up going through a lot of losses and financial challenges.
March 7th, 2017, our brother-in-law passed away suddenly from stomach cancer. And we found out that we were having a boy not long after that. We decided to name our son Christian after our brother-in-law. My wife started experiencing complications with her pregnancy. June 15th, 2017, we were in the hospital as she was having those complications with her pregnancy. Family all around us because they're celebrating her birthday, but she was going into labor at that time. He was born prematurely, but we are so humbled and blessed that we got to spend 2.5 hours with him. He was alive, he was well, he was healthy, he was a great looking boy. We prayed as a family and told him it was okay to go home.
My brother-in-law ended up passing away, and we lost a baby. Those were medical bills that got stacked on. We ended up having another baby after that. He's a miracle from God. He's our rainbow baby, our blessing, our promise.
My wife actually had a hard pregnancy with our son that we're referring to now, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, if you guys don't know, that means God is with us. And nothing more fitting than the situation that we were in than to have God remind us that God is with us.
When he was 1 year old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The bills that came with that, each chemo was about $20,000. But God provided every step of the way. Going through all that was really hard. It's like you're a Christian, everything is supposed to be great, but you're gonna go through challenges. But through everything that we've gone through, the medical bills that we've gone through, God has still always been faithful and made a way. That's why I say tithing, you can never outgive God. The numbers don't make sense. He just makes a way.
In hindsight now, God prepared us for all of that. It started with us being obedient and diligent with our commitment of our finances. God calls us to be stewards of our finances because it's His to begin with. I am so happy to share that my wife just passed the 2-year mark of being in remission last February. God has exponentially blessed us. And I'm not saying that we did not struggle in different ways, but financially God provided for us in every single way possible. And I don't know where we would be if we didn't have God helping us navigate through all that. Had we not been diligent in our tithing, I don't know where we would be right now, because we wouldn't be disciplined in any other area of our life. And God has just blessed us tremendously with our finances. Even to the point where I'm happy to share our latest miracle. We are expecting now. And so my wife is pregnant, and we are so looking forward to what's to come. But God is good, and He is true to His promises.
Amen.
And that's Elijah. He's 18 months now. Doing well. And I just want to kind of close this out really quick. I know we're at 12 o'clock right now, but I want to also just kind of mention my husband and I, we went through all those challenges, and then recently, back in November, my husband ended up losing his job. He got laid off. from the accounting firm that we both work for. And that was back in November. And we started this journey 5 years ago, like my husband mentioned. And I really do believe that it was ordained by God for us to go through that journey starting 5 years ago. Because we went through a lot, but he also blessed us financially to go through everything that we were going through. He gave us such an abundance that we were able to pay off debts, get rid of debts, live below our means, have this abundance, to where when this ended up happening, we ended up losing over 2/3 of our income, going down to 1/3. And I was kind of freaking out when everything happened, and I was like, God, why is this happening? Like, you gave us such an abundance, we were doing good things with it. And then when we finally went through the finances, did this process, and I realized, wow, God, like, my income actually covers everything for us. Like, you know, that we're able to make it and go through this season of our life, this new trial that we're going through, but it's actually helping us to grow. And it also, I just wanted to just let you know, tithing's a promise. God will always take care of you. He's always taking care of us. Even through this, we are still tithing. And the numbers don't make sense. God is providing for us in everything right now. And I'm just in awe of him. He was blessed with a severance package when he got laid off. Not everybody had gotten that. But even in that, we have not had to really touch that, because God has just been so good in his promises to us. And I wanted to mention, like, we went down to 1/3 of our income. I don't know if anybody else would be able to say, like, losing 2/3 of your income in a year would be fine. But with God, anything is possible. And what I'm learning during this season, we're in a season of abundance. Now he's teaching us even more about sacrifice, staying disciplined. This works. It works with, and I say that it can work with any income, almost any income. It's just staying disciplined, assigning the money where it needs to go. Sacrificing temporarily. If it means cutting things, cut it temporarily. You don't have to cut it forever, just temporarily. It's a season. So I just wanted to end it with that and just let you guys know that God is working, and we're believing that when his income comes back, and he's working a part-time right now that he's blessed with, but we know that God has great plans for him and for us, and we are ready to, go on that new mission when he gives that back to us. But
Amen. Thank you, baby. Think about this, guys. We used to have this goal of living off of my income and having hers as the surplus, right? That was taken from us through this experience, and we have now learned to live off of my wife's income, 1/3 of the income, and the 2/3 when it comes back, or even more, is going to help us to be even better stewards, right?
bless us.
Our aspirations of kingdom building are more alive now than what they were before this actually happened. Now, on the flip side of that, I will challenge this class. You don't have to react to this. You don't have to share anything like that. But think about your situation. If you were in a situation where your income was impacted and almost 70% of it, 2/3 of your income goes away, what state are you left in financially? Are you in a very vulnerable position, or are you very healthy at that point? If you're in a vulnerable position, this is exactly why you need to be in this class, because this will teach you how to navigate your finances, set yourself up so that when stuff like this happens, you're already prepared for it, versus you trying to adjust and figure out how to survive. Does that make sense? We haven't had to tap into those things because this was a journey that was already in place. So when it happened, we did our numbers again, and we were like, God provided for us, right? And so that's where we are right now. God is helping us to navigate this time. And then when we come back to having that ample income again, it's going to be even better for us stewardship-wise. Does that make sense, guys? I'll challenge you guys with that, right? Your homework for this week is going to be to complete this financial statement so that we are prepared to go into the next week after that, which is let's start creating our monthly spending plan, okay? You guys understand how this process goes and then how this is going to help? As a source of inspiration for you, through this methodology and what we were talking about with our testimony, my wife and I have paid off over $150,000 in debt before this happened. And now we're able to sustain ourselves even without the income. Does that make sense? Once it comes back, we turn it right back on and we get right back into extremely healthy and kingdom building progress. And we're really, really excited about that. But in the meantime, that's the message for the class. What we're going through now is a testimony for vulnerability of why we need to be doing that this way during this time, not only in our season, but everybody in this climate right now. The economy is very volatile right now, right? Would you all agree? Navigate it by tightening up your house. Get your house in order so that if something happens, you're good to go. Okay? God bless you guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you all.